Well, Happy New Year, everybody. I am putting this episode out to give you the top 4 episodes that had the most downloads on my podcast. And I'm actually recording this for YouTube and my podcast channel. My podcast is Reverse Multiple Sclerosis. And I started doing these podcasts in March. And I've downloaded over 60 to help you all heal from MS. I've given you lots of information. It's my passion to help as many people as I can to let them know that they can heal holistically. And it's been exciting for me. Just a couple weeks ago, I hit my 3,000 downloads. And knowing that, it's giving me information that you like what I'm putting out. But it's just my passion to help people reverse their MS symptoms. Your doctor, unfortunately, won't tell you this, that it's possible to do. And I've got a 12-week program, and I help people go through it and heal their MS. So anyway, here's the 4 snippets that I'm going to give you today on the 4 most popular episodes that you downloaded in 2025. Number 1 is episode 101, and that was the first episode I put out. And you get to hear me talk about my own story and what happened to me and how I healed. So the second most downloaded episode is episode 106. And that is me interviewing my friend Susan French, because last year I put on an autoimmune summit and I interviewed about 14 people who have deep smarts in healing autoimmune diseases. So you'll learn about how stress is a big factor and a catalyst for getting MS. My third most downloaded episode was episode 143. And this is me talking about the top 9 causes for getting MS. And then the last most downloaded episode is episode 154. And I talk about what are your daily habits to help heal your MS. So I hope this is helpful. I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And thank you so much for listening. And just know that you can heal. I'm going to pop in really quick. Don't fast forward, because you might miss the end. And it's really important that you listen to the end, because it has to do with how this podcast is going to go and how you're going to listen to today's episode. But real quick, I'm doing a master class January 12th at 5:30 Mountain Standard Time. I'm going to be going over how we get MS, and I'll be telling my story really quickly, and then telling you how I help people heal with MS. It's possible. So with that, you can sign up at nourishyourway.com/master-class. And if you can't make it that day, sign up anyway, because I will forward the recording to you later. But for those who show up, I'm going to give a special gift. Okay, so today's 4 episodes, I've made them shorter. So the first 2 especially, those were about an hour long. Actually, my story is really long. So I cut that down from almost 2 hours to about 11 minutes. So I just put in the really good stuff. Now, this podcast is still long because there's 4 episodes in it. The last 2 episodes, you're going to hear most of what's in there, but I did not want this to be 3 hours long for you. I just wanted you to listen to what's really important. So here is the first episode. It's a Cliff Notes version of my story. So enjoy. Most of us that get into wellness and health, they learned how to heal themselves, and they want to spread the word, and they want to help others. That's usually how it works. So, since I had the incredible knowledge I gained this knowledge after I turned 45 and realized I had MS, or had the diagnosis. I realized that I had the power to heal myself. And so I want to spread it to others, right? So anyway, I'll start when I was 28 years old. And I woke up one day and was numb from the chest down. So my chest, my midsection, my legs, my feet, and my hands. And when I walked around, it was like pins and needles. So if you've ever had, your foot fall asleep and you walk on it, you know how uncomfortable that is. It feels like pins and needles. Well, it was like that for me for 30 days. So what I did was, my mom was a prior nurse, and I remember calling her in California and saying, Mom, this is what's happening. What do I do? And she said, well, I want you to see a neurologist. Well, I did that. And in his office, he gave me a bunch of physical tests, right? Like he had me walk in a straight line. He had me, touch my nose, had me do some other like eye tests, like looking at certain things. And, after he did all that, did not have an MRI at that time, but he asked me, he said, well, are you curious what you might have? And I said, yes. What do you think's going on with me? And he said, well, if I can bet on it, you probably have multiple sclerosis. At 45, I woke up again and I had a blind spot on the side of my left eye. And I remember talking to my husband about it, and he goes, well, go to the eye doctor, figure out what it is. And I said, okay. So I did that. And, he figured out that I did have that blind spot in my eye. And so I asked him again, I'm like, what do you think's going on? And he said, well, there's 3 things you can have, A, B, or C. I don't remember A or B, but I remember what he said for C. And he said, you could have MS. Anyway, after that, I was handed off from doctor to doctor. Then I went to a neurologist again. And this time the neurologist said, well, let's rule some things out and get an MRI test for you and get some blood work done. A couple days later, I went back in to get the results, and I had lesions all over my brain. I was in shock. She said, all right, I want to get you on a steroid drip. And a couple of days after that, I ended up with a severe migraine headache. It was awful. I felt like somebody hit me in the back of the head with a sledgehammer. Also at that time, I had all these other symptoms that came out. So I had numbness in my legs, numbness in my hands came back. I had severe fatigue. I just wanted to sleep all the time. And I had brain fog. So I was in bed. I can't do anything. I'm in bed. I'm in pain. I'm really in pain. During that time, you get curious. You're like, okay, what is going on with me? So I had my laptop in bed trying to figure out what's going on and just trying to search any information about MS that I can find. And so after some searching, after a couple of days, I came across Dr. Walls's TED Talk. And she wanted to learn more about this, about how nutrition and diet could help her. So she started being a guinea pig on herself, and she healed herself, And so after I saw the TED Talk, I thought, oh my God. I mean, this was a eureka moment for me. It was an aha moment. And I thought, how come I don't know this? How come people don't know this? Why are we not educated on this? This is insane. Like I said, I was strict with myself because I knew that as soon as I can start eating these foods that my body needs, I could heal myself quickly, right? That's what I wanted. And I've got to tell you that after about 6 weeks, most of my symptoms dissipated. They disappeared. And the symptom I still had for a while was the blind spot on my left eye. And I kept eating like this. It was very difficult at first, I got to tell you. But I started making all these recipes that tasted good. So basically a paleo-based diet was what I was eating. I created my own recipes. And so it took a couple years, but I developed a cookbook. and it's on Amazon, and it took about 2.5 years to do. So, being a realtor, I would come home, or on weekends, I would make recipes, and I would just, make smoothies, or, salads, or, desserts like brownies made out of sweet potatoes. And then I learned like what kind of sugars I can have instead of regular sugar, right? Like coconut sugar or honey. Those are my staples. The reason I did it was I wanted people to know that healthy food can taste really good. So then about a year later, or after my cookbook came out, and I was still a realtor at that time. And a lot of people knew I was working on this book, and I had a book launching party, and I sold 100 books that night to all of my colleagues and my friends because they knew what I was doing. And that was a really fun night. But then I had this other idea, and I wanted to interview people that had also healed their disease, and this is MS only, naturally, either with food, and that's a biggie, everybody. Food, diet is so, so important. And then, exercise, getting out in nature, grounding or earthing. I didn't know about that. That was something new to me. Also trauma, like healing trauma. I had some childhood trauma I didn't know was trapped inside of me. I had to like work that out. There's so many other modalities, getting rid of toxins. Some of us have heavy metals in our body. I was using an underarm deodorant that had aluminum in it. This is the other thing I want to say. So out here, the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control here in the US, on their website, they say that 60% of adults have at least one chronic disease. 60%. And then 40% have one or more diseases. Like, to me, that's just unbelievable. It doesn't have to be this way. So I'm popping in here to tell you, now you're going to listen to episode 2, and this is my interview with Susan French, and it's all about how stress could be a catalyst, and most likely is, to your MS diagnosis. So enjoy. I am going to introduce Susan French. Not only is she a really good friend of mine, but she is very intelligent, and she has a lot to say today about how stress can hinder our wellness. So she is a functional nutrition lifestyle practitioner and also certified functional nutrition counselor. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Susan.
Oh, it's my honor, of course. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be able to talk with you and your viewers about this. It's a really important issue. And I think, the more we do stuff like this, the more people can avoid getting really sick, because it's not expensive. It's not complicated. There are a lot of things we can do to manage our health on our own, our well-being and health, before it gets too bad.
Right. It's about awareness, right? I mean, and I've got to tell you, I did not realize until after the fact that I healed. Well, I healed all my symptoms, but then I realized I still had healing to do. Even though I didn't have symptoms, I had some childhood trauma that I had to get over. And
yes.
I didn't realize that stress can get trapped in your body for like a long time. I mean, this was years ago. And, and really it was only about 3 or 4 years ago when I realized that something like this can happen. But yeah, so go ahead. I'm so, interested in learning more.
Well, you're exactly right. Holding on to that stress, we don't really realize it. And maybe at one time, maybe when you were taking Psychology 101 or something in school, you're like, oh, why do we always blame it on the parents? Why do we always go back to our childhood? It's so long ago, get over it. Well, that's good in theory, and it makes a certain amount of sense to try to move forward. But there's a couple books right back here, What My Bones Know or Body Keeps the Score. These are books that explain exactly what you're talking about. our early childhood experiences can affect us for the rest of our lives. And why is that? Well, the human brain is very slow to develop. We are an advanced social species, and it means that it takes our brains, because we have a lot of different layers of our brains, and it takes our brain a long time to develop. We're very slow to develop, and 18 years later, we're ready to be considered adults and move on our own. I mean, what other species is like that? But with that slow development comes a lot of opportunity for influence, hormonal influence, environmental influence, and our brains are affected by those influences as they're developing. And so, yes, it goes back to your childhood. It's not just get over it. It's how our brains are physiologically functioning based on early childhood and pre-development. Well, stress causes inflammation. Inflammation is the cause of a lot of disease states. So inflammation is our body's natural and beneficial response to injuries and infections and stressors, pathogens. And what are the pathogens? We've got viruses, bacteria, we've got fungus and parasites and other toxins. So our body is constantly dealing with stress. And when you have a lot of stress coming in from all these different angles, and you're in sort of hyper function mode where you can feel yourself just sort of unable to slow down, you could be considered trapped in your sympathetic nervous system. We really need to take a look at what we can do to get out of that sympathetic nervous system, those stressors. But there's a lot of things we can do to bring ourselves back into a place where we have a little balance. The sympathetic nervous system, when I say you're stuck in it, that means you're stuck the majority of time in it, because our balance is constantly going back. Sympathetic, parasympathetic. It's like as quickly as having a shock, sympathetic, you take the breath, and then when you realize it's not something that's a threat, parasympathetic. So it really goes back and forth. It's when you're in this heightened state that the damage really starts occurring, because you can't give yourself a break. I don't diagnose. What I do is say, okay, I'm going to work with you to understand what your terrain is like from which X occurred. And when you change the terrain with your functional nutrition, with your nutrition, with your epigenetics, and what are epigenetics? That's everything around you that helps express those genes. It's your sleep and relaxation. It's your exercise and movement. It's your nutritional intake and your hydration. It's your community involvement and stress, of course, everything. So that's why I call my business Everything Matters LLC, because everything does affect you, whether you realize it or not. Nobody gets out unscathed. Nobody gets out without stressors. Yes, some stressors are much, much more drastic than others. We get that. But our brains have such a wonderful capacity to help us along or to hold us back. And it's really an individual choice. You really, if you can concentrate on just knowing, you know what, my amygdala is it thinks it's keeping me safe by keeping me in this state that I am familiar with. This stress, this fear, this grief, this whatever it is that you keep going back to because you're comfortable, even in your discomfort. You're comfortable because that's what you're used to. And your amygdala says, this is what you're used to. That's where you need to stay. Remember you're grieving. Remember you're angry. Remember what he said. Remember what she did to you. Be angry about that. It keeps you where it thinks you are comfortable.
Keeps you from moving on and healing, right?
Yes.
Okay, popping in again. Now you're going to listen to the third episode, and this is me explaining about the top 9 causes of MS. So enjoy listening to this one. I want to talk to you today about why we get multiple sclerosis or other autoimmune diseases. Number 1, leaky gut. What is leaky gut? This is a big reason why people get autoimmune diseases. And leaky gut means that there are toxins that have been going through your digestive system. This can be food like gluten, dairy, too much sugar. This could be trans fats or seed oils. This could be chemicals from processed foods. So what happens is when we eat some of these foods, they start breaking down our intestinal tract. And when this happens, our tract becomes permeable. And this means that particles can fall through the tract. And this wreaks havoc on our digestive system and our whole body. And our whole system goes haywire. So how do you fix leaky gut? Well, you got to start eating whole foods. You got to be taking out all those toxins that I just mentioned. And when you start eating whole foods, you start healing your digestive tract. And number 2, toxins. I just went over this, right? Toxins like too much sugar, gluten. Most people are allergic to dairy or have sensitivity to dairy, and most people don't know this. Processed foods. A lot of these chemicals in these foods hurt our body. They hurt our system. Number 3, lack of nutrition. Most Americans and other people in other parts of the world, Australia, the UK, now in other parts of the world, we don't get enough nutrition. So we need to eat more vegetables. We need to eat more quality meats, quality fruits, eat organic as much as you can. And these are the macronutrients that we need. So what is a macronutrient? That is quality meats, carbs, and good fats. And when I say carbs, I don't mean bread, okay? I mean veggies like root vegetables. I mean squash. I mean sweet potatoes, right? Those are the good carbs that we need. And then when we eat correctly, we get the micronutrients that we need. All the vitamins, right? Everything from A to Z or A to zinc. And then we get the calcium and the magnesium and the zinc and the iodine. When we eat correctly, we get the nutrients that our bodies need. And when we don't get the nutrients that we need, we start getting all these symptoms. And it's our body telling us, hey, something needs to change here. You're not giving me the nutrients my body needs to work efficiently. So we need to start listening to our bodies. And we need to start changing our habits so we can get well. Number 4, there's other toxins out there. There's chemicals in our cleaners, in our laundry detergent, and there's toxins everywhere in our food, in our water, and some we can't help to avoid, but many of them we can. If we change our cleaning supplies with natural ones. And sometimes it's even in materials, the clothes we wear or the fabrics in our home, like drapes or carpet. Some people are highly allergic to some fabrics because some chemicals are in them. So besides the chemicals and the processed foods that a lot of people consume, we also need to think about mold, parasites, and heavy metals. And mold is a tough one. Many people develop a lot of weird symptoms when it comes to mold, including mental issues. So if you haven't figured out what kind of toxins that you might be exposed to, if you can't get well, for example, you might want to get your home tested or your apartment tested for mold, because mold is very serious. And then heavy metals. And we can get heavy metals from our drinking water, from foods, from breathing the air, from things we put on our skin. I'll give you an example. I had aluminum in my body, and I didn't know where it was coming from. I had ordered a hair test kit from Amazon. I wanted to know what toxins I might have. So I sent a couple of strands of hair on my head to a lab. I was high in aluminum. And I thought, where is that coming from? And it took me a couple of months to figure it out. And then one day, I read the ingredients on the underarm deodorant I was using. It was aluminum, was one of the top ingredients in it. And I thought, oh my God, this is where it's coming from. So I had to stop that product. So be aware of everything you not only eat, but things you put on your skin, the clothes you wear, the chemicals in your cleaning supplies. So a lot of these are toxic. And then as far as parasites, there's a lot of us that have parasites. And what you want to do with parasites is you want to starve them. So you don't want to feed them sugar. You don't want to feed them any breads because bread turns into sugar in your system. And you want to start eating more bitter foods like broccoli, like arugula, kale, some of the green lettuces, some green vegetables that are bitter. So this is the way you can starve your parasites. And then the other thing is EMFs. So a lot of us, if we have a computer job, maybe if we work from home or in an office, we get too many EMFs from our computers and from our phones and from our electronics in our house. And so we need to be able to step away, take more breaks, go outside, take a walk outside. This is the way we can minimize the amount of EMFs that we're getting. And I remember one day I had spent pretty much all day in front of the computer. And the next day I felt really sick. And I figured out why I was sick. I was getting in too much computer time. I didn't take enough breaks. I didn't go outside. So just be mindful of that as well. So number 5, another toxin is toxic relationships. And I've talked about this. So if you are with a partner, or maybe you have somebody in your family that's toxic, just know you need to set healthy boundaries from that person. If a person doesn't bring you joy and you don't feel good about being around that person, you definitely need to set boundaries. You want to be around people that make you feel good. Hopefully it's not anybody at work that you have to see every day, but you do have to figure out how to mitigate this kind of stress because this is not healthy for you either. And this kind of stress gives out cortisol. And when our body is pumping out too much cortisol due to stress, this can lead to disease. So you need to learn how to mitigate this. Number 6, infections. So you've probably heard that infections like the Epstein-Barr virus, and I've done a little bit of research on this. Most of us have or have been infected with this kind of virus, but I've also read some studies where it's been linked to MS. And then Candida. And Candida is when we have an imbalance in our gut, in our colony within our digestive system. And what it is, it's an overgrowth of yeast and fungi and bad bacteria. So we need to learn how to mitigate that. And I talked about that already. So if you can get away from gluten, sugar, and dairy, those are the main things that you need to avoid, and then start eating more veggies and low fructose fruits like berries, for example, and then quality meats like organic chicken, grass-fed beef, wild-caught fish. Okay, those are really good examples. Number 7, too much stress or too many negative emotions. So if you look at Dr. Gabor Mate, or if you look at Dr. Sarah Zoll, or if you research Dr. Lisa Rankin, all of these doctors will tell you any stress or any negative emotions that might be trapped in your body can also cause disease, which leads me to past traumas, number 8. And I've had to heal my past childhood trauma. I had a parent figure that was a narcissist and also dealt with through my adult years, had caused a lot of trauma with my body, and I had to learn how to release that. You know, trauma can come in different ways, not only childhood trauma, but relationship trauma, religious trauma, military trauma, If you've been in an accident, maybe a car accident, or maybe you've been in another kind of accident, maybe you've had a loss of a loved one, maybe parents, or maybe a child, maybe a brother or sister, maybe a loss of a pet that you were very close to. Trauma can exist in so many different forms, and we need to learn how to mitigate this or heal this. And trauma can take some time to heal. And also hiring or finding a psychologist or a counselor to help you heal from that trauma is not shameful at all. If that's something you feel you need to do, then go for it. Forgiveness is a big deal. Forgiveness is very healing. So if you need to forgive somebody and you don't have to tell it to their face, you can actually forgive them in your mind, and then you can let them go. And this isn't very easy for a lot of people, and it takes some work, and it might take some time. You know, women, there's so many women that have been raped. This is a kind of trauma, and it can get stuck in our body, and we need to release it, and we need to forgive the person who did this to us. And I know that's not easy, not at all. So that was number 8, past traumas that you need to heal. Number 9, the last cause that I've got on my list is a lack of exercise. Body movement helps heal. If you're hiking or going for a walk or in nature, if you've heard of tree bathing, I've talked about this. Tree bathing actually is so mentally good for you. And the trees actually give off a chemical that you breathe in, or other kinds of foliage, natural foliage. And if you breathe in these chemicals that are given off naturally from nature, it helps you develop the NKs, the natural killers that actually help you fight off infections and bacteria in your body. And then tree bathing is actually so good for you mentally. It helps you get to a peaceful spot in your mind. It helps you relax. It releases endorphins. So hiking or walking in nature is so good for you. Okay, so this is the 4th most downloaded episode. This is me talking about your daily habits and what you need to start doing to start healing your MS diagnosis. So enjoy this last one. What are your daily lifestyle practices to help you heal your multiple sclerosis? You can heal, but there's a lot of changes that you probably need to make. So there's 4 pillars of health. But number 1 is diet. Number 2 is exercise. Number 3 is mental and emotional wellness. And number 4 is self-care. And so I'm going to be going over these one by one and explain a little bit more in depth what all these entail. So number 1 is diet. So when I was diagnosed with MS over 10 years ago, I had no idea that diet would help heal my MS. And diet is so critical. You know, doctors, our typical Western doctors, don't go to school and learn about diet and lifestyle. They learn about the body. They learn about different parts of the body. They learn about different diseases, but they don't learn about root causes. And they barely, if at all, get education on diet. Many times it's an elective course, and it's a tragedy, but it's going to change. Eventually, our medical system is making changes right now, but they're slow. So it's going to take a while before our broken medical system gets on board and helps people with health care, not sick care, because that's what our American medical system is doing right now. It's not about preventative. It's about treating illnesses with pills and injections. And it's sad because that's doing more harm than good to all people. Now, we need drugs. We need drugs for When we break a bone, when we need surgeries for that kind of thing, that's when we need meds. But we don't need meds for diseases. We don't. We can heal them naturally with diet and lifestyle. All right, so I'm going to get into diet. And it's not entirely our fault. We've been fed a bunch of lies, including our government. So if you guys remember the food pyramid, when that came out, the last bottom part of the pyramid said that we needed 6 to 11 servings of grain every day. And that is a bunch of malarkey. We can lead healthy and robust lives without dairy or any kind of grain. What we need is our macronutrients. We need our protein, we need our carbs, and I don't mean bread, by the way, I mean vegetable carbs and fruit, and we need good fats. And that's another thing that we've been lied to over the years. Remember the low fat phase? This was kind of late 90s, early 2000s, when we thought, because this was marketing, that we thought we should stay away from fat. But we need good fats. This is coconut oil. This is olive oil. This is ghee, Ghee. This is clarified butter that's good for you. There's many good fats that you can add into your diet. And we need these fats because our body can't function without it. Our brains are mostly fat, and we need fat to feed ourselves. We've been getting the wrong information for so long. And then micronutrients are all about our vitamins and minerals that we need. And so many people are lacking so many vitamins and minerals, especially minerals like iodine and zinc and magnesium. These are typical ones that most people are low and deficient in. So you need to figure out what foods carry these vitamins. And a lot of these are in good proteins, like red meat. That was another lie. Don't eat red meat because that will cause, heart attacks and heart disease. No, it will not. So red meat, especially meat from wild animals or grass-fed or pasture-raised cattle, is nutrient dense, and they carry a lot of these vitamins and minerals that our bodies need. Organic chicken, wild caught fish, these are really good proteins that we need. So how do you heal? How do you figure out what to eat? Well, you need to start eating whole foods, and you need to start getting rid of your processed foods. The standard American diet is made up of spaghetti and burgers and pizza and French fries, all of these things that are inflammatory. So if you can get rid of gluten, dairy, and sugar, we are a nation of sugar as well. And your typical American gets 17 teaspoons of sugar per day. And that is not sustainable. Our bodies cannot handle that. And once you wean yourself off of sugar, guess what? You're not going to like it anymore. Your taste buds will change. And that's a good thing. Then you'll start eating a lot less sugar, no sugar at all. When I weaned myself off of sugar, when I tasted it again, after about 6 weeks, I hated it. It was too sweet for me. I don't like the taste at all. So this is what you want. And you might ask, well, Adrienne, do I do paleo? Do I do keto? Do I do vegetarian? Do I do vegan? Well, guess what? Animal protein, I'm all for. So if you decide to go vegetarian or vegan, or if that's what you are now, there's like 10% or less of people that can survive on a vegan diet. And those people have to be so careful to get enough protein, eat the right plant-based foods to get enough protein in their bodies to survive. And most people can't do it. So I want you to learn, you can handle some grains, But I want you to learn what gluten versus grains are. If you can cut out gluten out of your diet, you're going to be so much better off. Most people don't realize how damaging gluten is to our bodies. It's a protein found in wheat, rye, barley, for example, and most people can't tolerate it. But we don't realize that when we get sick, that can be part of the catalyst. Dairy, cow's milk is horrible for you because most of those cows are sick. Most of these cows are not grass-fed or pasture-raised. They are fed a bunch of garbage like corn or oats. These are things that cows do not eat. So these are things that cows don't eat. So when we eat or when we consume milk from sick animals, guess what? That isn't good for us. And really, when you think about it, milk, what is milk for? Milk is for that mammal's young. So how is it that we as humans drink cow's milk? And by the way, when we get to a certain age, when we get to about 3, 4, 5 years old, we can't process dairy anymore. And that's when we start weaning off of milk from our mothers. So that's another reason why we can't handle dairy. It's not sustainable and it's not healthy for you. And then sugar, I already talked about that. So if you can wean yourself off of sugar, you're going to do so much better. So I want you to learn what a good fat is versus a trans fat, what a grain is with gluten and without gluten. I want you to learn how much protein and veggies you need to live a healthy life. I took a year-long course in learning all of this. This is how I got certified as an integrative nutritional health coach. And not only did I heal myself, but I help people do this. People are amazed at how much they learn during my 12-week program. And you can do that too. So the second pillar of health is exercise. We live in a sedentary lifestyle now. You know, it wasn't like how it was when I was a kid. You know, when I was a kid, I used to go outside and play with all my neighborhood friends like all day long, like in the summer. Like I never used to go home until the street lights came on. And man, did we have so much fun. We didn't have cell phones. We had bikes. We had Barbies. We had army men. We had matchbox cars. And we got dirty. And today's society also kind of teaches you that getting dirty is bad, but there are actually really healthy soil microbes in the dirt that are really good for you. So like gardening and getting dirty is really healthy for you. And then getting outside, you know, exercise, you know, you just need to move your body every day. You can do that at home. You don't have to join a gym. You can go on more walks. Getting outside is really important because you want to get sunlight on your skin. You want to get that vitamin D. Now, of course, you're going to need a vitamin D supplement because most of us can't get enough vitamin D from the sun or food. Even us healthy people, I take my vitamin D with K2 every day because the K2 helps absorb that D3. I take lots of other vitamins and minerals too, and I make sure I get a lot of those through the food I eat. But move your body every day. It's also important to ground yourself. You know, I am talking to you and I have my feet on a grounding pad right now. And I'm getting health benefits from talking to you right now. So what happens is the negative ions from the grounding device, or when you're outside in your bare feet walking on the grass or walking on the ground, you get these negative ions that come up through the ground and into your body, and it balances out your body and it reduces inflammation. There's been scientific research on this. I have a book called Earthing. There's a movie called Earthing or Grounding, and just Google Earthing movie and you will find it. It's pretty darn incredible. So sleep on earthing sheets or grounding sheets. I do every night. That is going to help you. But getting outside, there are chemicals, natural chemicals in trees and foliage. And when they give off these natural chemicals, we breathe them in. And guess what? They create NK cells, natural killer cells. And guess what these cells do? They help fight off disease. So the more you can get out in nature or go walk in your neighborhood where there's lots of trees and foliage, the better it is for you. The third pillar of health is emotional and mental wellness. And I didn't learn about this, and I'm going to be honest, until after I healed. But when I took my health coaching course, I learned about this. And too many negative emotions or past traumas is most likely a catalyst for your disease, believe it or not. I was shocked when I learned about this. And then I had a friend who told me, they said, Adrienne, you have a pretty traumatic and tough childhood. I really didn't believe them at first, but then I really sat back and thought about it. And I realized that I did have childhood trauma. I had a mother who was a narcissist, and anybody who has dealt with a narcissist, you know how traumatic that can be, especially if you spend a lot of time with this kind of person. And I had to heal myself. I had to forgive my mother for all of the damage that she's done over the years. She's made me feel guilty. She had an anger issue. She was always angry about something, always telling me how bad I made her feel, which that is what a narcissist does. Now, the other thing is you might have been in a tragic car accident. You might have been raped. You might have experienced some sort of other kind of trauma in your life. So you need to figure out what that is and how that might be trapped in your body. And there's so many people who are professionals in this field, and I'll name a few. Gabor Mate. He is a physician and author who emphasizes on how childhood stress and emotional trauma can be a catalyst for disease, and how this disease can manifest much later in life. And that is what happened to me. Dr. Lisa Rankin, she has done some studies on how stress and trauma can be a catalyst for disease. And when you're in a sympathetic state, which is fight or flight mode, how that keeps you from healing. So she learned that you need to be in the parasympathetic mode to start healing. This is rest and digest. And then Pat Ogden, she's another person. And her approach is relevant to how emotional trauma can get trapped in the body and how it can be embedded in our tissues and how we need to let it go. And then the fourth pillar of health and things you need to do to really step back and take a look at yourself is self-care. Self-care is so much more than taking the weekend off or going to bed when you're tired. It's looking at the whole picture. Do you love what you do? Do you love your job? Are you stressed at work? Are you a stressed mother? Are you a stressed father? Do you have financial stress? Do you get up in the morning excited about your day, or do you dread your day? What kind of personal relationships do you have? Do you have a great family relationship? Or do you have one that stresses you out? Do you have good friends that you can count on and talk to? Do you have a partner that you not only love but adore? I've been married for 20 years, and guess what? We just celebrated our 20th year anniversary, and I adore my husband. To this day, I feel like I love him more and more every day. I hope for you that you're in a relationship like that. And if you're not, then you need to start loving yourself. So many people that don't enjoy being alone. I'm an only child, so I'm used to being alone. But if you are alone and you don't have that partner in your life yet, or maybe you don't want one, you need to learn how to love yourself. So many people do not know how to do this. And that is so important. And how happy are you truly with your life? What changes do you need to make? Healing MS is a journey, and it doesn't happen overnight. Healing is a slow process. It takes time. And even after 12 weeks, most people are not totally healed after 12 weeks. Now, I healed all my symptoms after 12 weeks, but it's a journey. And if it takes you longer than that, that's okay, but you just need to keep marching forward. And we can all heal naturally, and if you are on meds, and I've talked about this, the meds are not helping you. And your doctor has been trained to tell you that if you don't take your meds, your disease is going to get worse. But that's only if you don't change any of your daily habits. So I've weaned lots of people off of drugs. So if you've made some changes, to your diet, your exercise, your mental wellness, and your self-care, and you still have symptoms, gosh, reach out. I can help you figure out what you need to change. There's so much to it. And I can help you do this in the most effective and efficient way so that you can heal 100%. We all have this ability. Our bodies have this intelligence. It knows what to do if we just give it the right environment to thrive in and to heal in. Would you like some support in healing your symptoms? You can totally heal. I've helped people do this. It's possible. So if you want help, reach out. You can email me at info@nourishyourway.com, or you can go to the Work With Me page on my website, and that's nourishyourway.com. And you can get on my program, and I'll help you get back to health. Don't wait any longer. You deserve to get your healthy life back.